crowd for us? Get larger than anyone's inauguration.
Only one that I could think of.
How many people? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I think it's close to 50.
Yeah. Good deal. All right, so we're at Merced and Fulton. So we want to get rid of the super block notion, which was all the rage in the 60s, and it was the idea of making big, huge blocks so they were more like shopping malls than littler blocks, and the blocks that existed. And what we found is that cities all were basically built on these same ratios without anyone even knowing what they were. We actually like smaller blocks because it means we can cut through downtown however we want, and it encourages more pedestrian traffic. So like there's this interesting thing where they looked at the piazzas in Italy and found that they were the narrowest side was as far away as human beings could recognize a face. Right? So if you're sitting at one side and someone enters the piazza on the other side, you could see whether they were a bad guy or a good guy. But no one designed them that way. They just sort of naturally started feeling like, I feel safe in this piazza without even knowing why, right? So we start finding some of these ratios in downtowns too. So we like shorter blocks, narrower streets. Those things make us feel better. We like a certain amount of building height on the side. That makes us feel better. When you just make it a bunch of tall buildings, it can feel kind of overwhelming, fun to visit, but not really liking to be there. And if it's too wide, then you don't feel the energy. So, you know, when you think about a fun, bustling downtown, you actually kind of want to have a sort of crowded sidewalk. And one of the problems with the pedestrian malls was you end up with all pedestrian space, and if you have 500 people on a block, it can feel small. You put those 500 people on sidewalks, and now it feels like a fun, bustling place to visit for vacation, right? So we would say it's like having your birthday party at Celandrina. You know, you can have 100 people show up and look like a loser, or you can get the back room at Richard's and you look like a superstar, right? You want to scale the crowd and the size of the space sort of the same. So those are interesting things that we're now kind of able to figure out by backward mapping how they work. So it's like the ratio for on-street parking and the amount of retail you can support. It actually works here or in a tiny town or in a giant city. It's pretty interesting. So another thing we talk about that hasn't been done yet in Fresno that really needs to be a priority is facade improvements. So if you look through the corrugated plastic up there, this entire yellow thing is a facade that was added in the 60s to make the building look more modern and sort of massive. But you can see in the middle of that corrugated plastic, by where that crack is at the top, that there's an arch there. At some point I really should bring a picture of that with me, but the behind that yellow is a lot of really cool small pane industrial glass and pillars, which gave natural light into the second floor, which made it a very usable department store space because of all the natural light. And when we cover up the tops of these buildings, it cuts that natural light, and then people don't really like to be in that space. And a lot of the facades have been covered, so there's no natural light and the space isn't really usable anymore. So one of the next things for downtown really should be to get rid of these 60s facades and bring back that historic character, which we all love, but it also makes the upstairs spaces more usable, which means we have more activity and more people, which is how we measured vitality in downtowns. Someone had a question. Who had a question? Yes.
I did. That's my question was: the architecture going to stay the same? I mean,
Yes.
like they're not going to take down.
Right,
or-
so we want to keep the historic character, but actually in this case, we'd be
Put it
removing
back.
the 60s
Right.
character to reveal the even older character, right. But yeah, that's downtown's, part of downtown's, if you're looking from economic development, you'd say, who are we competing with? Well, let's say we're competing with River Park or Sierra Vista or Fashion Fair or whatever in terms of retail sales. Well, one thing that we have that they don't is these incredible historic buildings.
Right.
So they could try all they want to act like a downtown or be a downtown, but they're never going to be because of what we already have. So we don't have to fake it. So our strength really is in that character that we have that turns out psychologically becomes more and more important to us. So the faster life speeds up, the more we like being around old things, right? So it kind of makes sense. Internet, technology, faster, faster, faster. You want to go to a downtown and have a cup of coffee on Sunday morning and be around some beautiful architecture, and it calms us down. So there's a benefit to all of this too, but beyond it just being the right thing to do to sort of protect your heritage, right? To be proud of your heritage.
The Guaranteed building, the one next to it, and this one right here. What are their plans for that? To make them into lofts like they did the security building?
Many of these buildings don't have a plan. And so I like to be as transparent as I can on all of this stuff. So I will say the biggest disappointment we have right now are with our property owners. That's not unusual to our downtown. That's something that people fight all the time. I would say that if you had asked me if it was possible that we could have a $22 million public works renovation occur in the middle of downtown and no building owners would be fixing up their buildings, that would be impossible, because we've never seen that to that extent in other cities. But I do think we have a lot of foot dragging, and I'll let someone else be the leader kind of thought happening here. So a lot of these buildings have been purchased, but as you can see, nothing is happening. So I think everyone's waiting to see, will this really change? Should I put money into it or not? Not a chapter in Profiles and Courage for many of our property owners, I would say. The other part is economic reality, that we're still not getting the rents yet that justify a building's renovation. So even if they aren't leaders, if they're just going to be a follower, they will have to get a bank loan to say, we're going to renovate this building, and you want to get a loan to do it, and it's going to be $12 million to fix it up. You have to be able to show the rents that are going to justify that loan, right? So you can make that payment. If the rents are still 50 cents a square foot, you're never going to rent enough space to be able to pay back a $12 million renovation loan. So the other side is when the economics go up to the point where they can start getting loans or getting investment to make that turnaround, then they can. And with the bigger buildings, it's more understandable, I think, because it's a gigantic project and a complex project. The harder ones to understand are the smaller buildings, because they're generally already rented and they don't need that much renovation to make them work. And some of the ground floor retail is already getting up to $2 a square foot. So say from 50 to 75 cents 3 years ago to now up to $2. But to get that $2, you have to have a space that's fixed up. So again, you have to spend some money to get some money, but that should be more justified in the smaller buildings. Ultimately, if they want higher rents, they're going to have to spend some money. Right now, they're kind of playing a trick where they're saying, if you want to rent the space, you have to fix up my building yourself, and that's preventing a lot of entrepreneurs from coming in. The good news is every single week we are showing restaurants and retails and pubs and microbreweries and micro distillery space. They're just looking for the property owner that'll fix it up for them.
There is a project at the corner where we
Yep.
started, which if you go to the State of Downtown on Tuesday, you can see renderings.
Yeah. So that parking lot Elliot's referring to, that has all the construction equipment where we were meeting. There is a 5-story building being proposed for that site that's under, more than proposed, it's actually a project waiting to come off the ground. And it's gotten significant funding from Cap and Trade, I think. So that was a good reminder. State of Downtown is this coming Tuesday, and the doors open about 4 o'clock. The event will start after 5 o'clock. There'll be beer and food and all kinds of things. It's at the Warner's Theater. So you get your tickets also at downtownfresno.org or on the Downtown Fresno Partnership Facebook page. But there'll be a lot of announcements there about stuff that's coming up. So if you can go to that after work on Tuesday, and it's also entertaining. So it's not just like a bunch of stats or whatever. So did you have a question, Mike?
Yeah. What has the Fulton Mall renovation done to property values on a percentage basis at this point?
I would say by and large they've about doubled. Maybe somewhere between 50% or 100% up in value already. Definitely higher than they were 3 years ago. So for example, the third building over is for sale for I think $650,000. A few years ago it would have probably been $350,000. So this section will look like the Fulton Mall. You can see a lot of the design of the mall. The new street is actually incorporating some of the design features of the mall. So the bands with the aggregate, the color of the concrete was close to the original color of the design of the Fulton Mall. This area will be kind of like a plaza space, but also you'll be able to see what the Fulton Mall looked like by and large. This one fountain in front of us, Dancing Waters, used to be by the Guarantee Building. It was moved over here, but the Falkenstein statues, sculptures, I should say, will be restored back here. They were a little bit off to the side before. So this will be kind of a neat gathering plaza space. And what we really want is to get more people coming into Chuck Chansey Park from this side, so they'll be walking in front of the future businesses that are along here, adding more foot traffic to this side of the stadium, rather than having everyone park and use the ticket window on the other side and then not coming over to this side. So a big part of all of that is activating this side of Chuck Chansey Park, so that hopefully you park at the underground or the spiral and you walk in this way, and there's a band playing and it's fun and festive. All right.